Amazing crowd, you know? Only the important ones really show up, they say, you know? Yeah, the ones that are meant to be, right? So it's a short, just a small kind of, obviously intimate gathering here, so feel free to just make this as casual as we can and ask questions, because really the reason we're here is just to kind of open up the best we can. You know, we can't speak for other artists and their creativity, but can kind of give a little bit of insight in terms of the history behind eroticism within First Nations art. I'll just start by saying that eroticism isn't something that we even consider, I mean, the word doesn't exist really within our culture because it's everyday life. I mean, it's natural. It's the way we come into the world. It's the way we view the world. The relationship between man and woman within our culture is all about balance. There's a true essence within our culture and the meaning behind the philosophy of our nation. And it's something that I've just learned to recognize later on in years within my own life by asking the right questions and looking at the right legends and looking in the right direction within the history, because Europeans had brought so much influence into our culture, because I think the first thing that really pulled our people into a certain direction was the form of currency. Money changed everything. Before that, it was all about trading and furs and balance and harmony within nature and all of that around us. So therefore, everything that was carved, all of our beliefs are that animals, sea life, all that kind of stuff, we're all in balance with it. And we all believe in transformation. And if we produce and animals reproduce and everything reproduces, it's all in the betterment of the future and moving forward, and it all creates harmony. And it's like a perfect song coming together. And that's why songs are created, to chant these and to recognize this and to bring balance to everything in life. So to look at this whole philosophy within nature and life and prosperity and, you know, coming together between male and female is as natural as you make it. I mean, is it every day, you know? But it wasn't until the church had come and said, hey, you know, and looked at figures like this. Calvin did a rendition from an old piece, which is a ridicule figure. But I mean, in all honesty, I don't know where Calvin, or if Calvin had talked about the history of this piece, but this is a prime example of what had happened because of currency being introduced into our people. There was a devastating time when our people were trading and everything was being influenced by money and they couldn't keep up anymore. And then all of their trade routes were in jeopardy because people were coming in and they could buy things instantly. And then it would eliminate that long trek all the way down to the north of California for certain furs or trading for abalone and all those things that we considered a huge commodity. Abalone and ermines, the rare furs, the really delicate furs, the shells, those are the things that we held in really high regard because that was a symbol of wealth. And it's the same as the French. They're decked out in their ermines and their gear. And royalty around the world, yes, still are. And it's the same thing. But then currency started coming in, and then there was this form where people would just start buying things. Chiefs, you know, it's not talked about, and I don't even know if it's even written about. But there was a time when prostitution was introduced within our people. And it was a really dark time because they were moving so rapidly because chiefs were about standing now. They could potlatch overnight because they had money and make their standing bigger. So that not only was our culture shifting dramatically, our system was shifting dramatically, the chiefs' rankings were shifting dramatically, everything overnight was shifting. And it was all about that gain. And it was like, I'm the bigger guy now, and I can do this, and I can buy all this and that. And they were prostituting people, and this is reality. And the money money that was coming from it was boosting status. And like I say, it's a really dark thing that wasn't talked about, but carvers coming from certain areas made figures like this, old figures, and they were ridiculing women for those things because they were throwing the balance off between our whole philosophy. I mean, male and female until this point were completely equal. When you walk into a big house, our entire big house is made up of the female Mother Earth body. The house itself is the womb of Mother Nature. The soil, we still dance on soil because you want to dance on her chest as gracefully as you can. And you're not allowed to wear anything on your feet. You have to be bare feet. And there's still a fire because the fire is the soul of that essence of that woman. And the beams and the structure of her being, as stronger it is, as strong as she is, because that's what it's about. All the singers singing in harmony is the heartbeat, giving life to everybody on the dance floor, everybody in that house. So we turn before we enter the dance floor and we turn before we leave, because it's like a baby turning before it leaves and enters the world. It's the most sacred place that we could be that still exists within today is our big house. And we still maintain that. In the beginning, a woman will come in and open and take the lid off the box of treasures and open the whole ceremonies, and at the end, a man closes it to maintain that balance. That's everything that we're about. That's the existence of our nature. So all of our origin stories and everything all exists within peace and harmony, within balance of nature and between man and woman. So then creating pieces around that is really easy because it becomes just natural. It's just what it is. And we believe in transformation, like I say. If we're easily to transform into whales and ravens and all these kinds of things, I mean, you're going to transform back. We all reproduce the same way, no matter how you look at it. It's natural. So therefore, you know, it wasn't until a period, like I say, between, you know, the church and missionaries coming and saying, well, this isn't right. You can't do this. Put a stop and put a ban. Our potlatching was banned and everything was banned and residential schools came and all that kind of stuff. But then again, the church brought a lot of darkness and a lot of abuse. And a lot of abuse, sexual abuse. You know, and we have to talk about that too. And that's reality. So for us today as artists, to free ourselves and say, hey, okay, are we going to be artists of the past or are we going to be artists of today? Are we going to talk about living issues? Are we going to talk about the past? Or where do we find balance, you know? So I know between me and Frances, like I can't speak for Frances, but I know through her work and everything that she does, we're at a period where we just want to be honest with ourselves first. If we're going to create something, I want to create something that's going to liberate me. I want to create something that is going to be healing. That's going to move me into a direction and say, this is who I am today. I can create things from the past, but I'm not about the past. I'm living now. And what about the future? So where do we go from here? And how do we challenge these questions and issues with anybody around and other artists? You know? And that's a big conversation between all artists. So it's like I say, I can't talk for other artists. I can't reflect on their works, but I can reflect on the history and the direction that they're coming from. And most of it, like I say, is, I think most importantly, is probably just the curiosity a lot of artists have within themselves of asking that same question of like, well, geez, what do I do? Where do I go? You know? And it's like, you can look at yourself, any art form, whether you're a musician or a painter or a sculptor or whatever, what is your direction? I mean, Mozart pushed himself as far as he could off the end of the earth, literally, you know? So who's to say that we can't do the same in any art form, in any realm or aspect? I mean, that's why we're here. So the body of work that you see is just pretty much about that. But when we talked about the show of the Elaine, it was like, okay, let's talk about taking something from a historical point of view. Find something in archival, so then it doesn't look like you're just kind of being a pervert. You know what I mean? That's too easy. I mean, really, we could create all day long freely that something with substance, you know? So that was my thing, but I know the memo didn't get out to everybody. You know, which is good too, because I think, you know, I'm sure it's very liberating for some, you know, for Trevor to say, hey, this is great, I've never got to do this before, you know. But in reality, this is where we're at, and this is what the art is about. And certain artists reflected on old things, and some didn't, and some are coming from a place. But most importantly, what I think is that the archival perspective that I introduced sculpturally was something just to challenge the artist, just to say, to look back and actually do research and ask themselves what was happening in that period before contact. And then to create from that period and to kind of lose themselves in between. Let go of it and find yourself today. You know what I mean? So gap that bridge and just kind of like move forward and just kind of carry on, and let's not be stagnant anymore. So that was my idea, and you know, everybody did what they want to do, which is fantastic, and you see a great body of work. But William created a house front, which I think is amazing, because he took right from an old legend. And there's an old black and white photo actually when you pull the door up. But there's an old legend, and it's about a woman from our area, and they said she literally had teeth within her vagina. And she was powerful, and she was almost like a guardian of great chiefs from a certain area. So anyway, within our culture, we marry for dowry. So people would go to try and obtain great areas, whether they're resources, you know, salmon rivers, buying into different things for clam beds, or even just rights, or even positions, makes them a bit bigger chiefs. So apparently this woman was so mystical, let's say, that other tribes like Haidas and different, you know, nations were sending men in to go and to try and get her. And they were going home without any penises, because this is what was happening. She was literally, you know, taking them off, and you know, it's a long legend that talks about it. But anyway, it was a big door that symbolized this in this one tribe, and then people would walk through it, and it was like the chief's way of saying, okay, when you're allowed in, you're allowed in. The ones that aren't, the door would close, and it was symbolic of that. But it was like encompassing that the entire tribe was as powerful as that woman, and that was the main gate to get in. And that was the main gate to get out. And if you couldn't get in, then that's why. So, you know, so that's what the little bit of that was about. And then, you know, like, I'm just kind of winging it here because I'm just going through different things.
Excuse me, Randy. We do want to know about your painting.
Yes.
Yeah. When I started painting that, actually, there wasn't any thought. Because what I wanted to do artistically is I wanted to challenge viewers. And I'm always telling a story. I'm always putting so much energy into something, and for once, I wanted to do something and do the opposite. So I challenged viewers in that image by creating a painting where I use specific colors where they're soft. Literally colors that would lure people in and be like, oh wow, that looks so pretty, without actually seeing what the image is, then questioning the image. So the man that is reaching out, he's a fool's mask, Lusa'nala. He's got his big nose, his eyes, he's grinning, you know, he's got that kind of stupid look that all Lusa'nalas have. And he's just reaching out, and then I thought, you know, just for conversation, I'm going to add the cross onto his wrist, because the symbolism is so strong, yet we can't deny that the issues have been there. And it's like I say, for me to deny the issues aren't there is just to, I mean, you might as well just surrender and slice my wrist now kind of thing and say, hey, whatever, and hang everything up, you know. But this is why we're here. We need to challenge ourselves as artists. We need to kind of put the curiosity out there and let people just roll with it. You know what I mean? That's what art is. Honestly, I think even Picasso didn't know what he was doing at the time. You know, and Picasso was trying very hard to be Picasso. You know, I mean, there's so many different artists from all over the world that were challenging the eras that they're in. this is the era we're in as First Nations, and this is the movement we're making, and we're embarking, literally, into a whole new era. And if we don't push ourselves as artists, what is the future of First Nations art? We have museums all over the world. There's more artifacts in museums around the world than we have in our own area. I mean, I go to Berlin, they have over 1,000 in their collection, which are underground, you can't even see. You know, you go to any museum in Europe, they're just buried under sheets and sheets, and to get in there, and to make appointments to get in there, and they won't even allow you to see them. And it's like, okay, well, what is the purpose? If they're never going to be seen, what does it mean? So for us as living artists today, what are we conflicted with? You know, and what is our truth? Where do we go? So it's like challenging issues that surround us. I mean, we were stripped of everything. I mean, all of our masks were taken, and they're in collections around the world. All of our youth are throwing into residential schools, and all of these issues, you know, and it's like, okay, instead of living in the moment, that moment, we can focus on today and tomorrow. And, you know, so creating from the art piece. And, I mean, for me, that's what it kind of comes down to. It's like, I didn't want to have a specific story behind it because I wanted to connect on senses with color. I mean, there's a big hand for touch, a big eye for your sight. But the body language in the woman, she's embracing it. She's not shying away from it. So for me, it's like, okay, it's a timepiece of today, and there's somebody luring in between to the back, kind of just peeking around, and it's like, we're surrounded by eroticism every day, and it's how we look at it. It's the simple moments.
The significance of the hand?
Is the sense of touch.
Hands on saying stop.
Could be stop, okay, if you like. I don't think she wants to. Yeah. So I mean, so that's me in a nutshell, just kind of like giving you a gist of some certain things. I mean, I reflected on this piece, as you can see, that whole piece is from a Berlin collection I was looking at. There's two that I looked at, and one was a male-female embracing each other, which I'd never seen. But there's a lot of little figurines that I had encountered, all that have to do with, they're very erotic or, you know, questioning. And I think they were almost like toys. I was asking some of our elders, and they said, yeah, there are lots of little figurines that were made for toys that had to reflect on birth, coming of age, all these questions, and were used for educational purposes with kids. Now they're looked at as like, you know, like risky, but I mean, that, like I say, it is all normal then. I was talking with one elder in Fort Rupert, and she said she remembers when she was really young, and she was in one of our old villages, and she was sleeping. She said she was about 6 years old, and it was old because she said the smoke, the fire was going, the fish were all on the sticks. Middle of the night, she woke up, and she was looking around because she could hear singing, and she looked across the room, and men were coming in with spears, and they're painted, and they're kind of marching in, and there's a woman that was lying on her back, and they all went up one at a time, like they're going to spear it, and finally the last man that came in had encountered her. And it was a sexual act, and it was about coming together. And I had never heard anything like that, you know, of actual rituals. So there's a lot of stories that you don't read about, and there's so much more that people are afraid to talk about because of all of the things they're told, with, again, like residential school and things like that. Like Christianity is like, no, you can't, you're not allowed. But yet we're losing a big part of history if we don't now. You know, so for us in our living generation as artists, like I say, we need to push forward, challenge these, and create, and be free, more than anything, just let her rip. That's me in a nutshell.
It's been a long time since I've spoken in public, so I'm a little nervous. Where do I begin? I have no idea. Rande emailed me a while back and asked me if I'd be interested to be part of an exhibit on eroticism, and I'm like, eroticism? I went to get the dictionary to look up eroticism, and I still don't even remember what the definition is of eroticism. And I started to look at all the work that I do and I create. I like to create a lot of images around women, a lot of women images, and they're all about connection, connectedness to people. So this is one of my favorite pieces. I have a house full of painting, and they're just like sitting there. I just hang out and I just paint. They don't go anywhere. They're just like, I just paint. But this particular piece was a set of 5 women images that I did. And it was me working through a relationship that was really short but very, very intense. And I really wanted to, you know, do horrible things to this person who hurt me. And it was just, and you know, working through that, I thought I really wanted to work with the light and the dark of this relationship. And I experienced all the dark having been in this relationship. But I wanted to honor the really good things that came out of that relationship too. And it took incredible effort and energy for me to look and look within myself and look within this relationship to see the good things that I got. So this piece is called Farewell. This is the last of 5 paintings that I did. And it's sort of like my final kind of, see you later, see you later. And I love it. I love it because it represents to me the beauty of this person that I was involved with. And to me, very, very beautiful person, physically, not so much in other ways. But I love the movement and the curves of women's bodies. And the hummingbird is very suggestive. It's going to a particular part of her body. And it was so funny because Gloria Waddens is like, is that a mosquito? It's like, no, it's not a mosquito. And the butterfly is about transformation. That represents transformation. And the butterfly is flying away from this person. Very sensual too, from the lips. I love this piece because it's soft, and yet it tells a really big story, as all of my other paintings. I don't study history at all, like Rande talks about that. All of the work that I create is about me and all the experiences that I've had with people in my life. And through these experiences, I paint these people in how, in many ways. And so I live up near the Cedar Hill Golf Course, and I like to trek. I call it trekking. It's kind of like hiking. I go hiking around the golf course. And at this time that I was going through the separation, I really needed to kind of stop and slow things down and really look at what was going on around the golf course. There's all these different kinds of flowers. So in each of these paintings, I have different flowers that I studied. I've never painted flowers before, and I'm going, how am I going to do this? But it just happened. It just came. And I'm looking out the window one day at this the apartment building next door, and they had these great big daisies. I think that's what that is. And I thought it was so beautiful. And there was this like this one petal falling, and it was kind of representative of how I was feeling that time, really alone and apart from everything and everybody else, having gone through this big separation. The colors, I don't know. I never think about what colors are going to happen before I start to do a design. I finish up the design and I just pick a color that speaks to me. And the first color that I chose was the iridescent bronze. I think it's so beautiful, and it's really deep, and it's got this amazing shine to it. It's got a sheen depending on how the light shines upon the image. And that's it. And I thought to myself, instead of creating something around eroticism, I looked at all the images that I have that I've created with these women images, and they're very sensual. And to me, that's what eroticism is. Eroticism for me is women's sensuality, and I love painting women. And that was hanging in my apartment for a couple of years, and I thought it would fit perfectly with the show, so here it is.
Thank you, Francis.
As you can see, it's different things to different people. Our culture, they've got a lot of stories about, funny little stories about animals marrying rocks and different things. I just want to portray our relationship to animals, the finned, the furred, the feathered ones. because we believe that we can transform, or they can transform into humans as well. So I just wanted to depict a male and a female whale on here, along with their sex organs and various other things happening, as well as conception, just to represent, you could look at it as two whales or two humans if you like, so just to represent our relationship to the animal world. That's my interpretation of it, or one of my thoughts when the show came up, was to do something that just represented our animal brothers and sisters that are like us, that have sex, you know, basically, so, and have sex organs and
And
things.
that's
So
actually
that's basically it for me. It's not as deep as I'm sure Miss Randy's talk, or deep as friends. It's not about relationships or anything, but just our relationship with the animal world. So.
Can you just demonstrate how you use it, Richard?
Well,
And how does that compare with an old one?
well, if you look, I've looked on in museums, and they have old box rabbits. So they're various sizes. So
What's inside?
what's inside? I think they're 3/8 hex nuts. They are. Because I found that if you use rocks, the rocks break down after a while, and it's become dust in there. So. I don't think the galvanized hex nuts are going to break down. Plus, it makes a nice noise.
It does.
So that's it for me. I mean, basically, just I wanted to represent our relationship with the animals with this group. There you go.
It is also big.
Yeah, it's all one piece. It's all one piece of one thing.
That's the marvel of it.
It wasn't easy. Yeah.
And it's hollowed out.
Well, it's actually one board. This is one board. It bends into a box, whatever it is, 3x3 box. All long, skinny box. It's about 3/8. About as thick as this. Way,